Okay, the live video is starting. I want to say good morning, good afternoon to many of you who are joining. Didn't really put a time on it today because I knew I had an appointment to attend to, and I didn't know what time that appointment was going to run over or run early, but I'm here. And just want to say thank you to all of the comments of my last week's video to end Black History with the infamous Dr. John Carlos, who was my special guest. But today, just in having these conversations with people, just today, I want to talk about something. And I want to talk about a theory because a lot of times, people sometimes believe that uh, things they hear may not be uh, researched already, or it may not be factual, or it may just be somebody who is spouting off on information. But I want to talk about uh, Carl Rogers' theory. And Carl Rogers, let me tell you who Carl Rogers is before we even get into this, right? So Carl Rogers' theory is that there's a need to be congruent or similarities between real self and ideal self. Rogers believes self-actualization was something every individual was seeking. Self-actualization is when individuals achieve their full potential. Now, what was the question I posted? The question I posted is, would people become more successful if others left them alone and they were able to navigate their own path of success? Now, based on that, that's why I'm talking about that, because sometimes, we walk around and we say, I don't want anybody bothering me. I don't want nobody talking to me. I just want to be left alone. But let me explain to you some of the things that will happen if you just want to be left alone, if you just want to be in your own silo and you have no interactions with anybody except uh, yourself. Let me tell you a few things that might happen in between that. But by the way, what are you listening to? You're listening to House Calls with your man, Dr. Rory T. Edwards, and we're going to talk today about how you actually seek self-actualization, how you find the best person you can possibly be. But like I said, some of the things that will happen to you if you go into your silo, and we know that a lot of that happened during the pandemic, where people had to go into their silos. But what happens to those people when they came out? Did they find all of the particular things that drove them back to being a social person? But what can happen to you? You can be increased stress and anxiety can happen. There could be depression. There could be cognitive decline, social skills deterioration. It can also be an increased risk of physical health and issues. And it also can be loneliness and emotional distress that can happen if you go into a silo and don't socially interactive. People were put on this earth to be socially interactive. People were put on the earth to engage with others. People were put on this earth to be watered. Now, if you're not watering yourself, what's going to happen? Things are going to, some of those things that I just talked about, increased stress and anxiety, depression, cognitive decline, social skills, um, what's the word again? A deterioration. I'm looking at the word and not understand what I'm looking at. Also, loneliness and emotional distress. These are the things that are going to happen to you if you go into this particular bubble and of a silo. But let's talk about a few things that Rogers actually talked about. Rogers believed that self-concept was influenced by three factors. Now, I want you to think about your life and how these three factors affected your life. Now, the first one is which he believes came from our parents' attitudes towards us in our early environment. You know, your parents are your first teacher. That's what we always talk about. However, your parents engaged with you also gave you, self-confidence, gave you a little ability to determine who you wanted to be. The second thing is the beliefs that we hold on about ourselves. That's our internal world. Those beliefs are what we believe about ourselves internally. And our third one is our perceptions of others, the external world, which is really big right now because most of us are looking for likes. Most of us are putting out things and hoping that people are going to like them. And the first thing that happens as soon as somebody says something negative, you forget about all of the likes. You forget about all of the likes and you just go trying to address uh, the negative comments, or even the negative looks, or even you thinking somebody's looking at you from a different perspective, and you want to take it and make it confrontational because you believe that their perception of you is much more important than your perception of yourself. That's when we talk about your internal world. How you feel about yourself will definitely shine once you know who you truly are internally. You won't be affected by the external doubts or the external looks or the external conversations or the small talk that's going on. And we talked about this before. We talked about this in the self talks, which I'm really going to allude to also as I move through this particular process. But that's the three things that he believes influence that self concepts were influenced by those three factors. Now, let's talk about another thing. The three core parts of self concepts are ideal self, your vision and ambitions of who you want to be. So, your ideal self is your vision and ambitions of who you want to be. Now, everybody dreams. Everybody, when you were young, you might have played sports, you might have said you were a certain person's name, or you were acting and you wanted to be somebody, or you were just going to your place of worship and you wanted to speak like the church leader, or you just saw a movie star, you saw somebody and you wanted to be like them. That's your ideal self. Now, your real self is your self image, is how you currently see and perceive yourself. If you all remember a little while ago, I said if you really want to know who you are, don't look in the mirror, but go into the mirror and close your eyes and look internally and see who you are. And that's who you really are. That's how you currently see and perceive yourself. And your third thing is self esteem, how much worth and value you believe you have. What's the motto of the Rory T. Edwards Group? You can withdraw what you did not deposit. So when your self-esteem is dictated by how much worth and value you believe you have, it's how you move through your daily routines. It's how you engage with people. It's how you don't become one of those individuals who gets in a silo and really doesn't want to communicate with people because you really don't know how much worth or value you have in your own self. So you have to really understand what is that. Now, what does Rogers say about the theory in the 5 step innovation decision process? How you go through, how you evaluate yourself, right? These 5 stages that you go through, or something like I'm talking about with the Roy T. Edwards uh, model. You can't withdraw what you did not deposit. The first one is knowledge. How do you define knowledge? How much knowledge have you established? Are you just accepting anyone who tells you anything and that's your knowledge base? Or do you accept the fact that you did the research? This is something you lived. This is something you experienced. This is something you saw firsthand that gives you a different perspective on the knowledge that you also have experienced. And it's not just knowledge that you learned or somebody told you about, secondhand knowledge, third-hand knowledge. You know, it's something that you've acquired in your journey to be the best you can possibly be. Now, the second one is persuasion. Oh, that's a word that we all get involved in. We can be persuaded by a lot of things. We can be persuaded by um, the way someone looks. We can be persuaded by what someone is wearing. We can be persuaded by the money that someone's having. We can be persuaded by how we see the person on TV, or we see the person on the radio, or we can be persuaded about just the swag that that individual has. So that's one of the things, one of the 5 stages that we will actually have to pass through to determine what our self worth may be. The third one is decisions. What I say in life, we only have 2 choices. The first choice is who we were born to in our family, and the second choice is the day you die. Everything else in between there, in your dash, is your choice and your decision. So whatever choice you make and the decision that you make, you have to live with that. And you can't blame somebody else for those particular outcomes. Yes, I do know that there's situations out here that prevent people from becoming some of the best, but you're gonna have to learn how to overcome obstacles. You're gonna have to learn how to dig up under obstacles. You're gonna have to learn how to climb over obstacles. You're gonna have to learn how to jump. You're gonna have to learn how to run. You're gonna have to know when to step to the side or step back on the grass. Those are things that you're going to have to make. Those are the decisions. Now, the fourth thing, which I think is very, very important, is implementation. How many of us have a great idea, but then as soon as we talk to somebody, we're persuaded by the person not to do it? You know why they tell us not to do it? Because they can't do it. So if you have something that's going to make you fulfill your purpose and do what you have to do, then you have to implement it. And you have to understand that everything doesn't come in the time that your mind may tell you, because again, we talked about those self-talks. You have those 75 to 50,000 to 75,000 thoughts every day that would discourage you from a lot of times reaching your purpose because you don't want to go through the process of implementation, right? And what's the last one? Confirmation. Confirmation. Yes, confirmation is very, very important because what do? Now you believe in yourself. Once you confirm something, you believe that I'm going to be steadfast in completing this task. And I am confirming it no matter what anybody else is looking like, talking about, whispering about, or even thinks about the outcome. Because you know what? It was my decision and my choice. You see what I'm saying? So we have to understand how we get to these particular what our real self is, which is our self-image, our ideal self, which is the vision and ambitions who you want to be, and our self-esteem, which is the power that generates us to walk tall. Once again, you're listening to House Calls with Dr. Rory T. Edwards, and we're talking today about the initial question for which I posted was, would people become more successful if others left them alone and they were able to navigate their own path of success? I want you to contemplate. I want you to ponder that. I want you to let that marinate in your spirit a little bit and wonder if you could be successful about, um, if you could have been successful or can become successful if others get out your way, right? But you have to also understand is that who you have around you, again, is based on those five things I said. The five stages: knowledge, persuasion, decision, implementation, and confirmation. But let's go to the last one. Let's go to the last one. I'm going to talk about this, and then I'm gonna take care of some other business that I have planned for today. I want you to ask yourself, what is your real value of life? How do you value life? Do you value other people's lives more than you value your own life? How do you value your life? And let me share with you a story. I'm not going to share the whole story, but I want you to understand, and I'm going to circle back to that question. What is your value on life? There's a story about a young boy who asked his father about what is the value of life. And his father gives him a rock, and his father tells him to go to specific places. And he says, don't talk to anybody. But he says, what I want you to do is make a sign that says rock for sale. And when the people ask you how much is the rock, put up two fingers. And so the boy goes to the street that leads to the market, and the little boy has a sign that says rock for sale, and someone stops and they say, how much does the rock cost? And the boy puts up two fingers. So it looks like I'm probably gonna tell the whole story, so just bear with me. And so the little boy picks up his sign, he runs home, he says, Dad, somebody offered me $2 for the rock. So the father tells him to go into the marketplace and do the same thing. So the little boy goes, he gets a booth, he puts on a sign that says rock for sale. A lady comes by and says, how much for the rock? He says, two. She says, $20. I'll give you $20 for the rock. The little boy is so excited, he runs away, he runs home, he tells his father, he says, Dad, the lady offered me $20 for the rock. Sister Tanya, how are you? Thank you very much. Yeah, we do have to talk, absolutely. You let me know the day and the time, and I'll make the arrangements for us to definitely converse. I hope 2024 is treating you well, and thank you very much for joining. So the little boy goes home, and his father says, take the rock now to the jewelry store. The little boy goes to the jewelry store, and he walks in, and he's walking around, and somebody comes up to him and asks him, he sees the sign, he says, rock for sale. And the little boy says, the jeweler says, well, how much? The boy pulls up two fingers. The jeweler says, I'll give you $2,000 for the rock. So the boy's so excited, he turns and runs home, and he tells his father that they offered me $2,000 for the rock. So his father says, now take it to the museum. And he goes to the museum and he's walking around and finally somebody addresses him and they say, "What do you need, young man?" He says, "It says rock for sale." The guy says, "How much for the rock for sale?" So he looks at the rock and the boy says, "Two fingers." He puts up two fingers. And the man tells him, "I'll give you $2 million for the rock." What's the moral of this story, right? The moral of this story is in our life, our worth becomes what we sell our value to and how we sell our value, where we sell our value. You know, if you want to be the $2 rock or you want to be the $2 million rock, it's where you go to sell your value. So for the people who want to validate their existence, where do they go? If you're going to the club to validate your value, if you're going to the block, if you're going to church, if you're going to the social platforms, you're going to education facilities, if you're going to political events, you're going to the museums, you're traveling the world, you are at these elitist gatherings, social and fraternal organizations, your circle of influence and your perception of your value is defined by where you sell your value, where you sell it, where you sell it. It's what you associate with that builds on the three things that Rogers talks about are the three core parts of self-concept, which are ideal self, your vision and ambition of who you want to be, your real self, which is your self-image, how you currently see and perceive yourself, and your self-esteem, how much worth and value you believe you have. It's where you go, who you associate with, that determines internally, because we were not created to be solo. We were created to be amongst each other. And so it's how you find value in the people who influence your decisions. And I'm just going to mention these last five and I'm going to move on. And so the potential adopters for innovation pass through five stages. Again, your knowledge, your persuasion, your decisions, implementation, and confirmation. That's how it is. So if you want to move through the life and be received for what you believe you should be received as, then you have to determine who is your circle of influence. Where do you go to find what your value of life is? There's so many opportunities out there to find out what your value of life is. But first, start with yourself. Start within your internal self-image of who you are. And then you'll find the answers to how you serve your purpose. I hope this was informative today. Like I say every week when I do these things, I thank you so very much for tuning in. This is your man, Dr. Rory T. Edwards, and today we address the Carl Rogers theory, and we also asked the question, would people become more successful if others left them alone and they were able to navigate their own paths of success? You are able to navigate your own path to success, and you don't need to do it alone. You need to find the right people to surround yourself with and walk in that strength, walk in that path of strength, and you will be amazed at what will happen to you. You just got to look at it. Look at the value of the people. What is their value of life that you're surrounding yourself with? What is your value of life? How do you see the value of your life? Are you the $2 rock or are you the $2 million rock? You make the decision. You make the call. It's your world. Let me tell you something, time waits for nobody and time is consistently ticking. And so if you're not keeping up, you'll be left behind. All right, this is until the next time we talk. I truly appreciate all of you for listening, all of you who may get an opportunity to listen later on. I appreciate you, and may you continue to serve your purpose and find your purpose. Until we talk again, check us out, House Calls with Dr. Rory Tierras. You be well. Ashe.